You've been lied to. For generations, you've been told a simple story: work hard, get a good job, save your money, and you'll build a secure, prosperous life. You've been told that putting your faith in the system, in banks, in governments, in traditional investment advice, is the responsible thing to do. That is a lie. And it's a dangerous lie that is actively making you poorer every single day. The old rules of the economy aren't just bent, they're fundamentally broken. The system hasn't just changed, it has been systematically rewired against you. While you've been diligently playing by the rules, the game itself has been rigged. The money in your savings account? It's a melting ice cube. Your retirement plan? It's based on math that just doesn't add up anymore. The very architecture of the global economy has been re-engineered to benefit a select few, while the vast majority are left wondering why they're working harder only to fall further behind. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is economic reality. This is the world the ultra-wealthy and the politically powerful already understand. They know these truths. They use them to their advantage. And their greatest advantage is that you don't know them. Until today. In this video, we are going to pull back the curtain and expose the 10 dark truths about the global economy that no one in power wants you to talk about. These aren't just abstract theories. These are the hidden mechanics devaluing your savings, suppressing your wages, and making your financial future more fragile than ever. But we're not just going to leave you with the problem. For each truth, we'll show you the new rules. We'll give you the blueprint for an anti-fragile financial strategy, a way to not just survive the chaos, but to turn this great rewiring into your greatest opportunity. So, forget everything you thought you knew. It's time to learn how the world really works. Section 1. The first dark truth: the death of set and forget investing. The first dark truth strikes right at the heart of conventional financial wisdom. The foundational strategy preached by financial advisors for decades, the so-called safe 60/40 portfolio, is dead. For half a century, the playbook was simple: put 60% of your money in stocks for growth and 40% in bonds for safety. The logic was sound. When stocks went down, bonds would go up, acting as a stable buffer for your portfolio. This was the bedrock of retirement planning, the set it and forget it model for the masses. But that model is now fundamentally broken. It was shattered in 2022 when the classic 60/40 portfolio delivered one of its worst performances in modern history, plunging nearly 17%. For the first time in a long time, both stocks and bonds fell hard, together. This wasn't a fluke. It was a symptom of a much deeper disease in the global financial system, a condition known as fiscal dominance. So what does that mean in plain English? Governments around the world, particularly in developed economies, are drowning in debt. The US federal debt to GDP ratio, for instance, has soared past 120%. Global public debt is hovering near an astronomical $100 trillion. This mountain of debt creates an impossible choice for central banks, the very institutions that are supposed to control inflation by raising and lowering interest rates. Their mandate is to keep inflation in check. But if they raise interest rates high enough to actually fight the persistent inflation we're all feeling, they risk making the interest payments on that government debt completely unaffordable. It could trigger a sovereign debt crisis. In the US, annual interest payments on the national debt have already surged past $1 trillion, becoming one of the largest government expenditures, more than many entire departments. So, the government's need to borrow cheaply now dominates the central bank's ability to set monetary policy. The result? The traditional relationship between stocks and bonds has been severed. Bonds are no longer the safe haven they once were. When inflation is high and central banks are trapped, unable to act decisively, both bonds and stocks suffer. Bonds lose value because inflation eats away at their fixed payments, and stocks get hit by economic uncertainty. The era of passive, set and forget investing is over. Anyone telling you that a simple, balanced portfolio will protect you is selling you a fantasy from a bygone era. They're ignoring the dark truth that the very foundation of financial safety has been fractured by a mountain of government debt that has rewritten the rules of risk. Believing in the 60/40ths portfolio today is like navigating a new highway system using a map from 1980. The roads have changed, and if you don't update your map, you're headed for a crash. Section 2. The second dark truth: the invisible tax you pay every day. The second dark truth is the most insidious because it's a tax you pay every day without ever seeing it on a payslip or a receipt. It's a deliberate policy engineered by governments to solve their debt problems by stealing the value of your savings. It's called financial repression. Here's how it works. Governments have a massive debt problem. They have two honest ways to pay it down: raise taxes or cut spending. Both are politically toxic. So they choose a third, dishonest option. They work with their central banks to hold interest rates below the real rate of inflation. Think about it. If your savings account pays you 1% interest, but inflation is running at 3%, you are losing 2% of your purchasing power every single year. You feel like you're saving because the number in your bank account is going up. But in reality, the value of that money, what it can actually buy, is steadily decreasing. That 2% you lost didn't just vanish. It was effectively transferred from you, the saver, to the biggest debtor in the system, the government. Your loss is their gain. By keeping borrowing costs artificially low, they get to repay their massive debts with devalued currency. This isn't an accident. It's a strategy. It's a stealth tax on anyone responsible enough to save their money in cash or low-yielding bonds. This is a deliberate wealth transfer from creditors, savers like you, to debtors, primarily the government. And we have historical precedent for this. After World War II, governments used financial repression for decades to slowly inflate away the massive war debts they had accumulated. They're running the same playbook today. This invisible tax is the primary reason why, despite incredible gains in technology and productivity, real wages for the average worker have barely budged for 40 years. The value created by your labor and your savings is being systematically skimmed off the top to subsidize unsustainable government spending. You are being punished for being a saver. Your cash is not a safe asset, it is a depreciating asset. It's a melting ice cube in an inflationary environment that has been engineered by design. The dark truth of financial repression is that the system isn't just failing to protect your savings, it is actively designed to devalue them. Section 3. The third dark truth: the end of cheap stuff. The third dark truth is one you feel every time you go to the store, but you've been told it's a temporary problem. It's not. The era of hyper-efficient, globe-spanning supply chains that brought us an endless supply of cheap goods is over. It is never coming back. For decades, the global economy operated on a model called just-in-time manufacturing. A t-shirt sold in Ohio could be made from cotton grown in India, woven in Vietnam, stitched in Bangladesh, and shipped through a port in China, all with razor-thin margins. This system was designed for one thing and one thing only: making things as cheap as possible. It was the engine of low inflation. But that engine has seized. The pandemic revealed its fatal flaw: it was incredibly fragile. A single ship stuck in a canal or a single lockdown in a port city could send shockwaves through the entire global economy. Now, with rising geopolitical tensions and trade disputes, companies are being forced to abandon just in time. They are moving to a new model: just in case. Just in case means building resilience, not just efficiency. It means companies can't rely on a single supplier in a single country anymore. They need multiple suppliers in different regions. They need to hold more inventory as a buffer against disruption. They're reshoring, or nearshoring, production, moving it closer to home, even if it's more expensive. This shift from efficiency to resilience is a permanent, structural change. And it has a permanent cost. Redundancy is expensive. Holding extra inventory is expensive. Building new factories in more expensive labor markets is expensive. And who pays for all of it? You do. These costs are passed directly to the consumer, embedding a higher baseline of inflation into the economy. This isn't the kind of inflation a central bank can fix by raising interest rates for a year. This is structural inflation. It's the price of deglobalization. It's the price of moving from a world built on cooperation and efficiency to one defined by competition and security. So, the next time you hear a promise of a swift return to 2% inflation, remember this dark truth. The fundamental structure of how we make and get things has changed. The world is being rewired for resilience, not cheapness, and the result is that the floor for prices on everything has been permanently raised. Section 4. The fourth dark truth, the AI paradox. The fourth dark truth is about the most powerful technology of our time, artificial intelligence. We're being sold a utopian vision of AI as a great equalizer, a tool that will unleash a new era of productivity and opportunity for all. The reality is far darker. AI isn't an equalizer, it's a power magnifier. It is triggering the single greatest concentration of wealth and power in human history. Here is the paradox. AI creates nearly infinite leverage, but leverage only amplifies what you already have. If you have capital, you can use AI to analyze markets and deploy funds with superhuman speed. If you own a business, you can use AI to automate processes and scale your operations exponentially. If you have data, you can use AI to extract insights and dominate the market. AI takes existing advantages and multiplies them 1,000-fold. But what if you don't have capital, a business, or data? What if your main asset is your labor? For many, AI is a force of commoditization. It can write code, create marketing copy, analyze legal documents, and perform countless other tasks that once formed the backbone of the middle class. This is creating a great divergence. On one side, you have the commanders, the strategists, the leaders, the visionaries, and capital owners who direct AI. Their skills of judgment and creative decision-making can't be automated, so their value skyrockets. They capture a massive share of the new wealth. On the other side, you have the commoditized individuals whose skills can be replicated or replaced by AI. They face immense pressure on their wages and job security. They aren't competing with other humans anymore, they're competing with a machine that's infinitely scalable and works for free. This isn't some distant future. It's happening now. We're seeing a massive flow of capital into AI, not just for innovation, but for labor replacement. The resulting wealth gap won't be a simple increase, it will be an exponential one. The Nobel Prize-winning godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, put it bluntly when he raised concerns that AI would ultimately hurt the poor and benefit the rich. The dark truth is that AI isn't a tide that will lift all boats. It's a tidal wave that will lift the superyachts to unprecedented heights while swamping the smaller vessels. It's a tool that is hardwiring inequality into the very code of our economic future. We're just getting started, and as you can see, these forces are already reshaping your financial world. If you're getting value from this and want to keep learning how to navigate this new economic reality, do me a favor and hit that like button. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because in the second half, we're not only exposing the rest of these truths but also laying out the exact strategies you need to protect yourself. Join the community. Don't get left behind. Section 5. The fifth dark truth, the Great Wall of Tariffs. The fifth dark truth is that the era of free and open global trade is over. It's been replaced by a new, undeclared economic war, fought not with tanks, but with tariffs, sanctions, and protectionism. For decades, we were told globalization was an unstoppable force for good. The free movement of goods, capital, and labor was the unchallenged ideal. That world is gone. We have entered a new era of deglobalization, and at its heart is the use of tariffs as permanent weapons to restructure the global economy. What we're witnessing is the construction of great economic walls. Major powers are deliberately creating a split global system. On one side, you have protected, high-cost markets in developed nations, where tariffs shield domestic industries from foreign competition. This lets companies inside these walled gardens maintain higher prices and profits. On the other side, you have the rest of the world, which now faces huge barriers to entry into these lucrative markets. This isn't just about bringing jobs back home, it's about rewriting who gets to be wealthy in the 21st century. It's about creating a system that favors established economies at the expense of rising competitors. This creates clear winners and losers. The winners are the corporations and investors inside the protected markets. They benefit from less competition and higher prices. The other winners are a few emerging economies that become strategic partners in this new order, the friend-shoring destinations that benefit as supply chains move away from geopolitical rivals. The losers? Consumers in the protected countries, who pay for this policy through permanently higher prices. And the export-driven economies that are suddenly shut out from their biggest customers, forcing them to pivot their entire economic models. This isn't a temporary trade spat. It's a seismic, long-term shift away from a globalized system based on efficiency to a fragmented one based on national security and competition. The dark truth is that these new walls of tariffs are locking in higher inflation for you and creating a new global hierarchy of economic power. The dream of a flat world has been replaced by the reality of a fortified world. Section 6. The sixth dark truth: the sovereign debt iceberg. The sixth dark truth is that the next great financial crisis probably won't start in a bank, like in 2008. It will start with a government. We are staring at a sovereign debt iceberg. What we see above the water is alarming enough. What lies beneath is potentially catastrophic. As we've discussed, global government debt is at an unprecedented level. In developed economies, debt to GDP ratios are at their highest points in a century. This creates a terrifying policy trap with no easy escape. Here's the trap. Central banks are faced with stubborn inflation. The traditional response is to raise interest rates. But because government debt is so high, raising rates to a level that would truly crush inflation would also trigger a fiscal crisis. The cure of high interest rates could bankrupt the government itself. So they are forced to choose between two bad options. They can either raise rates and risk a sovereign debt crisis, or they can keep rates relatively low, tolerate higher inflation, and allow the slow debasement of their currency. Either path leads to wealth destruction for the average citizen. Either your financial assets are damaged in a debt crisis, or the purchasing power of your money is destroyed by inflation. The real danger, the part of the iceberg below the surface, is the fragility of confidence. The entire modern financial system is built on the belief that government bonds, especially those from major economies, are risk-free. But what happens when that assumption is questioned? What happens when investors realize these governments are trapped and can't possibly repay their debts in real, undebased terms? The risk isn't a traditional default, where a government just says, "We can't pay." The risk is a default through inflation. They can always print the money to pay their debts. The question is, what will that money be worth? When confidence in a currency begins to erode, it can happen slowly, and then all at once. This is the scenario that keeps central bankers awake at night. The dark truth of the sovereign debt iceberg is that we're sailing into a field where the only two choices are a sudden collision or a slow grind of taking on water until the ship sinks. Section 7. The seventh dark truth: the revenge of the real world. The seventh dark truth signals a monumental reversal of power. For the last 50 years, economic power resided in the world of finance, in stock markets, banking, and complex financial instruments. The physical world of commodities, raw materials, and energy was seen as a simple input. That hierarchy is now flipping upside down. We are witnessing the revenge of the real world. Real, physical economic power is shifting decisively to the regions and nations that control critical commodities. This shift is being driven by deglobalization and the green energy transition. As supply chains fracture and nations prioritize security over efficiency, control over physical inputs becomes paramount. Who cares if you can design the most advanced semiconductor if you can't get the rare earth minerals to build it? What good are sophisticated financial markets if you can't secure the energy to power your grid or the food to feed your population? The commodity power map is being redrawn. Nations in the global south and other emerging economies control vast reserves of the resources that will define this century: lithium, cobalt, and copper for the energy transition, rare earths for high-tech manufacturing, and the timeless currencies of power, energy, and food. For years, the West's dominance of the financial system allowed it to dictate terms. That leverage is now being challenged by the leverage of physical scarcity. As supply chains become more regional, the countries that own the physical assets gain immense negotiating power. They are no longer just price takers, they are becoming price setters. This is a deep, structural rebalancing of global power. The abstract world of finance is being forced to reckon with the concrete reality of the physical world. The advantage held by those who control the ledgers is being offset by the rising power of those who control the mines, the fields, and the wells. The dark truth is that wealth and influence are flowing away from the financial centers of the developed world and toward the commodity powerhouses of the emerging world. Power is shifting from those who print the money to those who pull real things out of the ground. Section 8. The eighth dark truth: the liquidity trap. Your cash is a melting ice cube. The eighth dark truth is a direct consequence of the others, and it may be the most counterintuitive. In this new economy, the safest sounding asset is actually one of the riskiest. Holding large amounts of cash is no longer a strategy for safety, it is a guaranteed strategy for losing wealth. Your cash is not a stable store of value, it is a melting ice cube. We are caught in a new kind of liquidity trap, where the very ease of using financial assets is becoming a liability. Consider the forces at play. We have financial repression, meaning governments want interest rates below inflation, guaranteeing your cash loses purchasing power. We have the permanent costs of deglobalization, which add a structural floor to inflation. And we have unsustainable sovereign debt, which creates the constant threat of currency debasement. In this environment, numbers in a bank account become increasingly risky. They're just digital promises in a currency that is being systematically devalued. So, where is relative safety? It's shifting from financial assets to hard assets. Hard assets are tangible things that can't be printed by a central bank. They are things like productive real estate, infrastructure, commodities, and profitable businesses with real operations and pricing power. These are the assets that make up the real economy. Think about the dynamics. In a world of persistent inflation, the value of a physical asset like a well-located apartment building tends to rise. Rents can be adjusted upwards, and the building itself is a store of value. Commodities, from copper to oil, benefit from physical demand and supply constraints. The great financial paradox of our time is this: what feels safe, cash in the bank, is dangerous, and what feels risky, owning a piece of the physical world, is becoming the new safety. Having your wealth in digits on a screen is a bet on the stability of the financial system. Owning hard assets is a bet on the enduring human need for shelter, energy, food, and infrastructure. The dark truth is that the convenience of financial assets has masked their vulnerability. Section 9. The ninth dark truth: the demographic time bomb. The ninth dark truth is a silent crisis, a slow-moving force mathematically guaranteed to shatter the promises of the 20th century. The retirement systems in virtually every developed country on Earth are built on a pyramid scheme, and that pyramid is about to invert. The math is broken. For generations, pension systems like Social Security operated on a simple pact: a large, young generation of workers would pay for the benefits of a small, older generation of retirees. This worked great during the post-war baby boom. That model is now mathematically impossible. Across the developed world, birth rates have collapsed and populations are aging fast. The old age dependency ratio, the number of retirees for every 100 workers, is skyrocketing. In many developed countries, this ratio is projected to more than double by 2050. We are heading toward a future where there will be roughly one retiree for every 2 workers. You don't need to be an economist to see this as a demographic time bomb. The promises of a comfortable, state-funded retirement made to today's workers were based on a demographic reality that no longer exists. Governments face a brutal, impossible choice. 1. Drastically cut benefits for future retirees, breaking a core social promise. 2. Massively increase taxes on the shrinking base of young workers, crippling their economic future. 3. Inflate away the obligation. This brings us back to financial repression. They can pay out the promised pension amounts in a currency that is worth significantly less, a stealth cut in benefits. This isn't a problem for the distant future. It's happening now. Retirement ages are being pushed higher. Benefits are being trimmed. And the value of those benefits is being eroded by inflation. The dark truth is that the promise of retiring at 65 on your pension is a fantasy for anyone under 50. Relying on the state for your retirement is no longer a plan, it's an act of blind faith in a crumbling system. Section 10. The 10th dark truth, the illusion of choice. The 10th and final dark truth is the lie hidden in plain sight at the supermarket. It is the illusion of a competitive free market. The reality is that your economic life is largely controlled by a handful of mega conglomerates. Across almost every major sector, from food and agriculture to media, banking to tech, the market is dominated by an oligopoly of a few giant corporations. You may think you have endless choices, but in many cases, those competing brands are all owned by the same parent company. This immense concentration of market power has profound consequences. The most significant is that it creates structural inflation. In a truly competitive market, if one company raises its prices, customers can switch to a cheaper alternative. This forces companies to compete on price. But in an oligopoly, that pressure vanishes. When a handful of companies control the market, they have no incentive to undercut each other. Instead, they can act as a de facto cartel, raising prices in unison because they know you have nowhere else to go. This is a huge reason why your grocery bill is so painful. Food prices have seen staggering increases, far outpacing headline inflation. It's not just supply chains. It's because the companies that control the food supply have the power to raise prices and expand their profit margins, and you have no choice but to pay. It's gotten so bad that people are now using buy now, pay later loans not for luxuries, but for basic groceries. This illusion of choice stifles innovation, suppresses wages, and gives these mega corporations enormous political influence to write the rules in their favor. The dark truth is that the free market has become a playground for giants. The invisible hand of competition has been replaced by the very visible hand of corporate consolidation. Your economic freedom is far more limited than you think, and this lack of real competition is a hidden tax you pay every single day. So there they are. 10 threads of a single, tangled reality. The death of safe investments. A system stealing your savings. The end of cheap goods. Concentrating wealth. A new world of economic walls. An iceberg of government debt. A power shift to the physical world. Your cash melting away. A broken retirement promise. And an illusion of market choice. Taken together, they paint a bleak picture. They reveal a system that is no longer working for the average person. The old playbook, work hard, save in a bank, and trust the system, is not just outdated, it's a recipe for financial ruin. But recognizing the game is the first step to changing how you play it. Understanding these truths is not a cause for despair. It's a call for a new strategy. It's an invitation to stop being a fragile participant in a rigged system and to start becoming an anti-fragile architect of your own financial destiny. The powerful have understood these new rules for years. Now, you do too. So, let's leave the world of problems behind and enter the world of solutions. Let's build your anti-fragile strategy. The solution. Building your anti-fragile strategy. Pillar 1. Geographic arbitrage. The first pillar of an anti-fragile strategy is to break the single most dangerous dependency you have: your reliance on one country, one currency, and one tax code. This is the strategy of geographic arbitrage. Think of it this way: you've been a captive player on one team, your home country. Your income is in its currency, your assets are under its laws, and your wealth is subject to its tax policies. When that country runs into trouble, as all countries with massive debts and broken demographics will, you and your wealth are trapped. Geographic arbitrage is about becoming a global player. It's not about tax evasion, it's about tax and currency optionality. It's structuring your life so that you are not vulnerable to the whims of a single government. What does this look like? It means diversifying not just your investments, but your life's infrastructure. It could mean holding assets in multiple jurisdictions and currencies. You might own real estate in a politically stable country, hold some savings in a strong foreign currency like the Swiss franc, or own shares in companies in different economic blocs. It means developing income streams that aren't tied to a single economy, like being a freelancer with global clients or owning a digital business. The goal is to decouple your financial well-being from the fate of any one nation. As the world fragments and capital controls become a more common tool of indebted governments, this optionality will become the ultimate form of wealth protection. While others are trapped inside a single system, you will have the freedom to move and position your capital where it is treated best. This used to be a strategy just for the ultra-wealthy, but technology is making it more accessible than ever. You can open foreign bank accounts, invest in international markets, and build global businesses from your laptop. The first step is mental. Stop thinking of yourself as a citizen of just one country, and start thinking of yourself as a shareholder in planet Earth. The solution. Building your anti-fragile strategy. Pillar 2. Skill asymmetry. The second pillar is to make yourself immune to the commoditizing force of AI. You must cultivate skill asymmetry, developing capabilities that AI can leverage, but never replicate. As we discussed, AI is dividing the labor market into the commanders and the commoditized. Your entire career strategy must now be focused on making sure you're on the right side of that divide. The skills of the past, memorization, technical execution, following a process, are exactly what AI excels at. Competing there is a losing battle. The future of high-value work lies in the uniquely human skills that provide strategic direction for AI. What are they? First is judgment, the ability to make wise decisions with incomplete information. AI can analyze data, but it can't carry accountability for a decision or navigate complex ethical dilemmas. This is a human leadership skill. Second is creative vision, the ability to imagine what doesn't exist and inspire people to build it. AI can generate variations, but it can't create the theme itself. It lacks intent. Third is emotional intelligence and leadership, the ability to understand, motivate, and guide people. Managing teams, negotiating conflicts, and building a culture are rooted in human connection. The strategy is simple. Look at your career and ask the hard question. Is my value in executing a process or in making judgments and setting direction? If it's the former, you are on a path to being commoditized. Your mission is to aggressively reskill, moving from a doer to a decider. Become the person who asks the right questions of the AI, not the person who is replaced by its answers. The solution. Building your anti-fragile strategy. Pillar 3. Hard asset dominance. The third and final pillar is the most tangible. You must shift the center of gravity of your portfolio from the abstract world of financial assets to the real world of physical assets. This is the strategy of hard asset dominance. Financial assets, stocks, bonds, cash, are ultimately promises denominated in a currency that governments are incentivized to devalue. In a world of financial repression, these promises become increasingly fragile. Hard assets are different. They have intrinsic value. They are the physical things society needs that can't be created out of thin air. They are your best defense against currency debasement. The core of your portfolio should be built around these assets. What does this include? First is productive real estate, properties that generate reliable income, like rental apartments or commercial buildings. Rents typically adjust with inflation, allowing your income to keep pace. Second are commodities. This includes precious metals like gold, a hedge against currency failure for thousands of years. It also includes industrial commodities, copper, oil, agricultural products, the building blocks of the real economy. Third is infrastructure. Assets that form the backbone of society, like toll roads, airports, and data centers. They are often monopolistic and generate steady cash flows. Finally, it includes owning businesses with real pricing power, companies that sell essential products and can pass on rising costs to their customers. The strategic shift is to view hard assets not as an alternative part of your portfolio, but as the core. This is a complete inversion of the traditional model. It's a recognition that in a world where financial promises are less reliable, the ultimate form of sovereignty is owning a piece of the real, physical economy. We have journeyed through the dark underbelly of the global economy. We've exposed the lies and replaced them with the truths the powerful operate by. The world you thought existed, of safe savings and predictable retirement, is a memory. We are living in a new regime, defined by a system drowning in debt. Fiscal dominance has killed safe investing. Financial repression is an invisible tax. Deglobalization means higher prices are here to stay. AI is concentrating wealth. Sovereign debt is a ticking time bomb. And your cash is a melting ice cube. These aren't theories. These are the operating mechanics of the Great Rewiring. To ignore them is to volunteer to be a victim. But you are no longer ignorant. You now have the knowledge. And you have the blueprint for a new way to play the game. Build your anti-fragile strategy. Embrace geographic arbitrage to declare your independence from any single, failing system. Develop skill asymmetry to make yourself indispensable in the age of AI. And shift your wealth toward hard asset dominance to protect it from the ravages of currency debasement. This isn't just about getting rich. This is about becoming sovereign. It's about building a fortress of resilience for you and your family in an age of unprecedented chaos. The old world is dying, and a new one is being born. The rules have been rewritten. You can either be a pawn in their game or the master of your own. The choice is yours. The work starts now.